Welcome everybody to the 2023 Off-Road Racing Sponsorship Summit. We're hosting it live today from the /X Ranch Cafe in Barstow, California. Very cool. We're here during the California 300 event, which is this weekend. A lot of races this weekend. It's a great off-road weekend. My co-host Tiffany Stone and I, we have about 30 guests in off-road, from marketing directors, racers, sponsorship decision makers, and our goal is to pull out of them the information that's going to help you understand what brands want from sponsorship and how to get sponsored. We're going to have an all-star cast of panelists. It's literally the who's who of off-road, starting out with why brand sponsor, going all the way through to the very end, where we'll have kind of like what we're going to call a speed dating session. They're going to be 10-minute one-on-ones with a variety of brands to learn what they want from sponsorship. So we're filming here at /X, which is really cool. Tiffany, how are you? Are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you so much for having me be a part of this. I think it's going to be really cool to showcase to everybody that's watching really what it takes to get sponsorships in 2023, 2024, and beyond.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of getting sponsored and making a career out of racing is not just getting the sponsor, but keeping the sponsor and keeping the sponsor long-term. And that's what we're going to go into today. So I'll start out real quick with overview of what brands look for from sponsorship. Then Matt Martelli, who's the CEO of California 300 and the Mint 400, is going to give a state of the off-road industry. And then we're going to jump right in and start doing our sessions. So if you guys are ready, everybody on the screen, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you hear me? Can you hear us? All right.
That's a lot
Lots
of thumbs.
up. That's good. Those are good thumbs.
Those are good thumbs.
And then there's some people there, I think, still admitting, or I don't know what all those signs are, but all right, don't worry about that. All right, so we are ready to go.
I'm going to hop out.
Yeah, let's do that. Why don't we get Matt over here?
We'll get Matt in right here.
Come on over, Matt. So real quick, when it comes to getting sponsored, it's not just about creating marketing material and sending it out to anybody who has marketing director in their title on a business card. There's a logical process. And I like to say that getting sponsorship is, the 80-20 rule applies. 80% of it is logic and 20% is luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So if you're prepared, you can always be lucky. But the logic end, that's what a lot of people don't understand. And that's what we're going to hopefully convey today, is that if you understand the processes and the procedures and understand the logic and the economics of sponsorship, it'll increase your odds of getting sponsored. And off-road is a little bit different from other motorsports because it's very niche and it's a very tight-knit community. Matt's going to go into that in just a second. It's also a very diversified community with a lot of different types of racing, which is good because the opportunities that we can bring in, not just endemic brands, but also the non-endemic brands. Endemic brands have to prove functionality, and they usually sponsor because they're trying to show you why they can help you win a race. The non-endemic brands, they have to buy their way in. They have to pay their way for the visibility and the exposure, which is a word we don't like to use in off-road or in sponsorships. There's a lot of things that brands want from getting involved. Exposure is usually not one of them. So before we get into the meat, let's get Matt up. Matt, welcome. Thank you. Why don't you tell us what's going on in off-road?
Yeah. Hey, first off, I'm stoked to be here, especially sitting right here in the mecca of off-road racing culture, Southern California, at a very special place to me, /X. If you haven't been here, you got to come check it out. Right now, we're on day 2 of pre-running for the California 300, which is personally a big deal to us, especially in that a lot of people didn't think that we could have a major desert off-road race again in Southern California, and we proved them wrong. So super exciting. Guys and gals are out pre-running right now, checking the course, making their course notes, and campers are starting to come in for camping. So we're going to have a really big weekend, exciting racing, 80-mile course, pretty spectacular course, I must say. Everybody who's pre-run it is really excited. And just getting into it, the off-road industry has grown over the past 10 years consistently, and we've never had the opportunities that we have in front of us now. We've got everything going on from new manufacturers getting into the space with OEM-based vehicles to youth racing to more women coming into racing. So we have a lot of momentum, and I'm just going to run you down some of the highlights. I'm going to start with desert racing. That's our forte. So although you could say that desert racing is a bit fragmented right now, there's never been more people participating in desert racing. The numbers continue to grow. And with the advent of the sport side by side or UTV, that remains to be not just our biggest class, but our class that continues to grow. And with our new series, Unlimited Off-Road Racing, now we have a 3-race series in major markets that encompasses 40 million people within a 2.5-hour drive. So spectating and participating is going to be, growing over the next year, and we're really excited about that. As well as us implementing our prowess as Mad Media and implementing our content plan. So there's a lot going on in desert racing. South of the border with Score, they've been very consistent with their racing and putting on really good off-road races, and they've increased their visibility quite a bit with adding their live stream function. Although they're battling all the technical difficulties that everybody battles, we've definitely seen an increase in reach with those races. Here in the States, there's been more smaller race series that have popped up, not just in the Southwest, but all over the country with UTV racing. And we love that because that gets people into the space, and then they eventually come and race with us. We're also seeing more manufacturer involvement coming in, more sponsorship involvement coming into desert racing. So we look at it as, just additional growth throughout the years as we stabilize the market with our series. We'll be racing in January in Parker, bringing back the famed Parker 400, which was one of my favorite races as a kid. Hundreds of thousands of people spectated that race, and it was where the majority of racers and manufacturers debuted their vehicles in the legendary Thunder Alley, if anybody remembers that. So we will be racing and starting downtown Parker, just like the old days, and have lots of spectating for that race. And then in March, we roll in the Mint 400, and then back to California for the California 300 in October. And in between that, there's a whole lot of racing here in the Southwest with more Snore, and then in Mexico with Score. So lots going on in desert racing. To jump over to rock racing, there's been a new group that purchased Ultra 4 Racing and has taken it to new markets, which has been really cool. AOE, the organization, has invested into rock racing, into purchasing Ultra 4, and into increasing the visibility of it. They've had really solid live streams and a lot of good social media. He's also, Jason Robinette has invested into a track in Oklahoma, a super facility, I would call it, which gives us an anchor point east of the Mississippi, which is an important market that largely gets ignored in off-road racing. So we're excited to see the evolution of Ultra 4 east of the Mississippi and cracking into new markets that we've never had off-road racing in. As well, I'm jumping over from rock crawling to short course racing. Also, same group has made an investment into purchasing Gas, a local series, and building that and folding that into a larger national series, which we're excited about. That'll take short course racing to a couple new markets, as well as some markets that it's known for, like Wisconsin with Crandon. We just came off of a fantastic Crandon, biggest Crandon we've ever seen in history. So there's some really good momentum in short course racing. I've got to mention Rally with Nitro Rallycross. Travis Pastrana has done a great job promoting Nitro Rallycross. And they've actually integrated Class 11, which comes from desert racing. So it's tapped into the culture of desert racing, which is great. The sport continues to grow, continues to get integrated into new markets like Utah. They recently did a race at Jay, Oklahoma, at that facility that I was previously speaking about. And they'll be going to Canada as well. So they get to go to a few places that desert racing can't really go, which is cool. Jumping over to kind of the miscellaneous stuff, Red Bull continues their their scramble series, which is a really cool small event with racing UTVs, because they get to go into places that we've never been, like the Jersey Shore. They're doing a round in Alaska and a few other places like that. And we love that because it's leads more people into our forms of racing. And then Robbie Gordon, can't forget Robbie. He's been charging forward with the SST series and putting some awesome racing in front of the people at Long Beach Grand Prix and Nashville, Tennessee, markets that, you know, off-road racing typically wasn't at. So that's really cool to see. Dakar and Rally Raid continue to grow. Everybody pretty much knows what Dakar is. And now that we have some Americans racing in that series and doing well and winning, guys like AJ Jones, Mitch Guthrie Jr., Ricky Brabeck, Mason Klein, Skylar Howes, gives us somebody to cheer for. And especially in the series goes to now Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Morocco, and a few other places. It actually had a round this year in northern Mexico, which was really cool. So we will continue to see that series grow. And last but not least, but production vehicles, right? We have more production vehicles being produced now than ever in our history. And the Raptor ushered in that era, but now it's, you know, the Ram TRX, the new Toyota Tacoma, and obviously the sport UTVs. So we have never had this opportunity that we have right now to take advantage of new people coming into our sport. But we need your help. We need aftermarket companies to get behind races and sponsor races, and to get behind racers and sponsor racers, and really work together to help expose the sport and the culture to more eyeballs. We know we have a good product. We just need more exposure. Alex?
And that's why we're here today. Racing is not going to grow from top down. One major brand or sponsor coming in, sprinkling money and hoping it trickles down to the teams. Motorsports are only going to grow if every race team and driver is better funded, and if it grows from grassroots bottom up. The goal of today, I mean, you saw that off-road is strong, the industry's strong, the industry's large, but the money that's funding the industry is quite limited. So we have to look outside the industry. We need to bring in new funds from sponsors. And today we're going to learn how to do that. And everybody on the call today, you should be able to leave this call at the end of the day with more information and more valuable information and more valuable assets, knowing how to value those assets so that you can bring in sponsors that have not been in off-road before. That's our goal. We want to get you better funded so motorsports grows from teams and grassroots up. So with that being said, why don't we queue up our very first panelist? Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much. Queue up the first panelists. Let's get Courtney Prost from King of the Hammers and Cam Douglas from Optimum Battery up. And then, hi, Courtney, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm wonderful. How are you?
All right. Good morning so far. Just getting started. And then Cam Douglas. Cam, do you have your name on your screen so we can pull you up? We can find you. Raise your hand.
I think it's on there.
There it is. There he is. All right. Right on. All right.
Well, cool. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. So I'm going to start out sort of with an overview of why brands sponsor. You know, in sponsorships, it's not about going to a company and offering, and some of you have heard this before, so just bear with me for a couple minutes because this is really important for the new people on the call. It's not about a logo on your helmet, your race suit, or your car. Sponsorship is about a lot more than that. You have to become an extension of the business. You have to learn to be a partner of that business. And to do that, you have to understand what the business is. So the very first thing you do with sponsorships is understand, why do brands sponsor? what do they look for? What is the reason that they're investing? And it is ROI is return on investment. It is an investment in you, investment in racing. Different companies have different needs. Retailers, they want foot traffic into their stores. So if they're sponsoring you, they're trying to help you get foot traffic into the store or even onto their website. Service companies, they usually want to generate leads. They want to be top of mind at the time when you need that service. Manufacturers, they want to prove functionality. So they want to be on the podium. The beverage companies and food companies, they're looking for sampling. Very different needs from different types of companies. So you don't approach all four of those companies the same way. You use different approaches. And then you have to think about within each industry, who does that company sell to? For example, do they sell direct to consumers? Do they sell to retail stores? Do they sell to distributors who sell to retail stores? What is their distribution channel? Boxo USA, they sell direct. Optima Battery, they sell through retailers. Two very different strategies. A lot of parts and aftermarket parts manufacturers, they typically sell to mechanics who then sell to a customer who's getting a car repaired or an install. And knowing the distribution channel helps you approach that brand by becoming an extension of their marketing and extension of their sales. And then also you have to realize people consume media very differently. Older people like myself, I still like to read magazines and newspapers. I'm a little bit more of a Facebook guy. As the generations get younger, it goes to Instagram and Snapchat, and then even younger, it goes to TikTok. Some people read, some people watch videos, some people watch live streams, some people just use word of mouth. That's how they get their information. So understanding how people consume their media is also very important, because that's how you're going to transfer the knowledge that you have about the brand to the consumer of the brand, the customer of the brand. That's how you're going to educate the brand's customers about that brand's products. And it's very, very, very important. So before you call a company, know what business they're in, know who their customer is, know who what their customer considers value, and then know their different products. I actually had not a motorsports athlete, but I had an athlete ask me once to call on his behalf a manufacturer. And I said, oh, that's great. I think it's a great company. Let's do it. It was a really good brand to target. And I said, what are their top 5 products? He couldn't tell me. I said, look, there's no way we're going to get in a meeting with these people if you don't even know what they sell. What are their top 5 products? It was a med tech company, with a lot of money. So if you don't know the difference between an Optima battery, the orange top, the blue top, the yellow top, the red top, if you don't know the difference, don't call Cam at Optima. Is that right, Cam? Is that a fair thing to say? Is if I don't know the different colors of your battery tops, I probably shouldn't be on the phone asking you for sponsorship.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely need to know who you're talking to.
So let's go a little deeper. What is it then that Optima Battery looks for when sponsoring properties like King of the Hammers, because you entitle some of the events at King of the Hammers, or when you sponsor race teams? What is it specifically that you're looking for?
Well, we've had these conversations before, and I thought I'd take maybe a little different tack today. There's, the nuts and bolts that we always seem to gravitate to, how many followers do you have on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and how many views do you have, and how many races have you won? All those things that are typically in a proposal, those are things that I take for granted, and that checks a box for me. But there are, I think, things that I never see in a proposal, right? And I think those are some of the things that you allude to, that about the product, you use the product, you're excited about it, you're passionate about it. Those are kind of the unwritten things, the things that aren't in a proposal, but there's kind of a list that I've got that always resonate whenever the team gets together and we're talking about, who the great partners that we have, who they are, what they do, where others could improve, etc. But there's, whether it's an event or whether it's a team, whether it's a celebrity, whether it's a athlete, professional, whatever that partnership is, there's some key things that are important. One is chemistry with our teams, our agencies, our internal group, and the other pros that are on our team. That we get along. There's a chemistry element that's hard to measure, but you got it when you got it, right? It's somebody who's a genuine contributor. And I'll go into the reasons why, but I want to run through this list real quick. Someone who provides creative suggestions and solutions when we have something that we've got to solve. They got a can-do attitude. I can name several instances where we call somebody and say, "Hey, I got an event this weekend. I need to do an autograph session. I need the drift taxi there, whatever." And several come to mind that just never say no. They look for ways to make it happen. And at the end of the day, my last bullet point here, and I can go into some detail, but they contribute to the workload, not add to it. Okay. And there's a big reason for that one. I can kind of go into a little detail if you'd like.
Do you have examples of people who have added to it, like what not to do? I like that. Contribute. Well, you always hear that a lot. Give me solutions, not questions.
Yeah, they're not on the team. But this really stems from, kind of, I'll lay some cards on the table here. A lot of people don't know, maybe, but Optima is owned by a much larger organization called Clarios, and we manufacture 70% of the automotive batteries in the automotive market. So chances are pretty good you've got a Clarios battery underneath your hood. We make most of the OE batteries, and we make batteries for other people, right? We put their brand on it. Optima Batteries is the only brand that we own. So given that, we're a big, large organization that focuses every day on making black boxes, filling up trailers, and sending them out to our partners. Optima Batteries is different. We actually have a marketing group, right? But as big as Optima may seem or may be perceived, there's 4 people. There's 4 of us. One of them, that's my team of 4. And I've got one person on my team is responsible for some of our big legacy accounts and business development. He manages the military and Amazon and a couple other, important, larger, high maintenance accounts for us, right? And I have another one that's responsible for product development. That's his goal, and he has some responsibility there for marketing those new products and launching them, but that's his focus, and he's an engineer / marketer, right? And then I have one more who's responsible for all of our digital presence. The bulk of the marketing resides on me, so I don't have a big staff, running through and evaluating opportunities for me. I do have the luxury of some wonderful agencies that we've been with for a long time. But as far as my office goes and the people that I communicate with on a daily basis, it's the team of 4.
It's the team of 4. I like that. Well, let me ask this then. What is, when the team of 4 is selecting between sponsoring an athlete or a driver versus sponsoring a property like King of the Hammers, what criteria do you look at of where the money goes, whether you're sponsoring teams and athletes versus properties and events?
Sure.
How do you make that decision?
And again, Alex, going back just a sec, I don't want to say this, that this team of 4, like we're all stressed out over all the time or whatever. I just want to let people know that, their proposal doesn't get evaluated in a day or 24 hours or 48 hours. And in order you know, there are ways that you can get a leg up, right? But if I, you know, if I've typically speaking, that first introduction to somebody goes through a different process. If we have an agency, FM3 Marketing, that does most of our event activation and also has a sponsorship evaluation person that looks at everything that comes in through the internet, everything that comes in through our website. We do direct people there to start there. Generally speaking, though, those are for product sponsorship. Do those come to me unless they're such a fantastic opportunity or whatever that hey, you know, it stands out from the rest, right? And if you ask, how does it stand out from the rest? That's where somebody has to be pretty creative, right?
Right. Well, let me ask this then. Let's go to Courtney real quick, because you entitle some of the classes and the events at King of the Hammers. What, Courtney, do you do on behalf of Optima Battery, and how does King of the Hammers sort of fulfill what Cam was talking about, his marketing needs? How do you do that from a property perspective, and how can you help your teams get involved and do that from the team perspective?
So what I look to do is I essentially, what's one step better than everyone else is doing.
Oh, I like that.
So I look at, so you can apply this to anyone, whether it's to a company or to like a personal racer. And so for me, looking at Optima, I take and look at the contract. So, you know, they have X number of posts that they need to be shown through the year. They have a press release, and I'm making this up, but say they have 5 posts to the event, a press release, they need to be shown, you know, X number of times on the Jumbotron. Right. So I take those things and I mark them down and make sure they're going to be done with our team. But then what else can I do? Where else am I going to see them? So, you know, Kim and I were talking about this before, that, okay, I went to PRI last year. So Optima is going to be at PRI. I reach out to Cam and to, you know, his team members who are going to be there. Well, say, hey, are you guys going to be there? What can I do for you there? How can I get them involved in my activation there, our activation? I do live social with them. Nice. I, you know, put them with the group that's going to be there. I invite them to speak with our group. I do the recaps of our stuff for King of the Hammers and include Optima in them, tagging them, putting them in our reels on our social.
So you're acting as their agent on behalf of social to a certain degree by conducting that social for them. And actually you were saying to me, I saw you at Off-Road Expo, but before that we were talking and you had mentioned how social is changing because now there are creator accounts versus personal accounts. How does that affect how you represent brands like Optima or even drivers that you're putting in social? How does that relate? The different types of accounts that they have on social now, creator versus personal.
Well, just making sure that you have the correct kind of account for what you're looking to do. So, you know, business, creator, professional. Obviously, you always want to make sure that you, if you're a brand, that you want to have creator accounts or professional accounts, so you're having access to the, you know, music, and that you're able to have the best libraries possible and tools possible when you're creating content. And so you're able to push better. You're able to look at, you know, professional dashboards and analytics and, you know, making sure that your reach is there, looking at when your audience is online and maximizing those tools that the meta's giving you.
Then you were also mentioning when it comes to the social is you're not just creating clips. It's not about, hey, let's do a quick clip and put it online, but you're actually creating a storyline. You're creating many clips that paint this picture and tell a story over time. It's kind of like a dot on a piece of paper. One dot doesn't say very much, but you put 1,000 or 1,000,000 dots, you can actually paint a very clear photo or image of something. We have a fly flying around here. It just landed on my nose. You gotta love that. So how does the story develop over time and through social media? How can you create that?
Absolutely. I had this conversation yesterday with a competitor that said, I'm looking to start gathering some content on a competitor for King of the Hammers this year. And he's like, oh, well, I can have someone grab this for you, you know, wherever we're at. And I said, I'd really like our team to be able to meet with you at these points, you know, if you can let me know where you're going to be when. And he, not quite understanding what we're looking to do, that it's not just a regular social piece, but we're wanting to tell a story. So when you're looking to really like build a storyline, people get to know you. They get to, you know, they want to follow you. They want to cheer for someone. And so whether that's a brand or a person, when they feel like they can speak, when they feel like you're speaking to them and with them and conversing with them, they get attached to you and they want to root for you. And when you're talking to them from a business standpoint rather than from a person, you know, when you are engaging with them, always respond to your comments. Don't get in a fight with someone online. You know, don't respond to ridiculous comments. Or if somebody does want to start, you know, picking at you for something online, always, you know, hey, so sorry you feel that way. Send us a message and we're more than happy to talk with you about it.
And then you actually walk through the pits and you look for stories. So these are not manufactured stories. These are actual stories of what's happening at the time. And you're looking to tell the story for drivers that are in the pits, and stories developing because there's tension during the race weekend and rivalries, you know, heroes, villains, conflict, struggle. You got all the elements of Grecian mythology. So if you can pull out the rivalries among teams and tell that story through social, that gives a little bit of publicity to those teams. And then I also want to hear, I'm going to switch to Cam here in just a second, but Cam, I want to hear about how do you tell the story of a brand like Optima? First, well, Courtney, I know you'll tell the story through drivers and athletes, and then the brands sort of attach themselves to the athletes. But if a brand sponsors King of the Hammers like Optima does, how is it that you tell that story?
Well, King of the Hammers is a perfect example for us, and obviously the off-road segment stems from, you know, the simple fact that, you know, trucks are, depends on the year, but half or more of the vehicles sold in the US, and that's just a massive market for us, and and obviously off-road stems from that. So you know, it's super important for us to tell the story of durability, the ultimate power source, you know, absolute abuse that our product goes through. So the toughness, the reliability, the durability of the product is it's a perfect venue for that.
So last time we talked, you had told me about an activation that was really good by one of the Wisex teams at an event, and that in a way told a story, but it didn't just tell the story of the brand, you know, at an event, but it explained the product functionality of one of your new batteries.
Yep. I mean,
tell us that. That's a good one. I like that.
Sure. The event itself, obviously, it's a big branding opportunity, but to your point, when we're able to share with a large group, you know, how our product can perform in real life, that's huge. And so, you know, we do a variety of, every year we try to come up with some creative activation event. And this year we're putting that together too. I kind of alluded to that for Courtney on another call, but again, it's one of those things where if I want to do a trailer park drift, right, and we have a bunch of crazy carts with a bunch of professionals drifting around a track with lithium batteries in them, or we want to do a Optima Unplugged event, EV community, which you know, we're making low voltage 12-volt product that powers some of the new EVs, and we did that last year with heavily attended by Rivians and Lightnings and all kinds of interesting vehicles. Those are the type of activities that for us paid dividends much longer after the King of Hammers event is done.
Right.
What a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, you put all this money into sponsoring or partnering with an event. That event takes place over a day, a weekend, a week. If all you're doing is putting banners up, after that's done, your investment's gone. So it's how do you create something that creates a lasting impression, right? Or that continues to pay dividends throughout the year through content, etc. And that's one of the things that Courtney does well. She checks the boxes on my unwritten list, the things that aren't included in proposals, right?
That's excellent. Telling the story and making sure that the story is told even after the event. I like that. That's great. And then Courtney, you're also now developing rookies and amateurs. That way they have stories to tell. Go tell us about that for a second. If I'm an amateur rookie racer on the call and I want to know how can I work with King of the Hammers in order to get myself and my sponsors more visibility, what tools are at my disposal through King of the Hammers?
Well, we're only taking applications for 2 more days for
Okay.
the
Good to know.
2024 season. Throw that out there. So, well, tying that back into Optima real quick, actually, we were going to Off-Road Expo this past weekend. That was one of the stops on the 2024 rookie tour. And Cam and Jim weren't going to be at Off-Road Expo. So I invited them to speak with our group. And so that was one of the things that, you know, I asked our videographer on site with us to go and make sure, because Optima had a booth. So please go make sure you have a glamour clip, you know, a shot of Optima. And so even though they weren't going to be on site to speak, I wanted them to make sure that they got a shot of Optima's booth so we could at least put a shot in our highlight reel that we posted after the event, so I could tag them. And, you know, and we pushed out, so Optima still got a, you know, a highlight in there, and then they shared our reel too. So it's true partnership. It's not a sponsorship, and everyone should look at that in all directions. So it's not just for the sponsor, you know, we like calling them partners. It's not just on their behalf, like they're helping us too. They're pushing that. If you build that relationship, and that's really what, you know, we are trying to do and putting to a culture as well, is it goes both ways. They're helping us to push our stuff, and we're seeing it in our metrics. And so,
oh, nice. What kind of metrics do you look at? I'm curious.
Just analytics. So look at your analytics, both Google Analytics and through your metas and stuff. And, you know, we're really taking a deep dive to look at the people consuming our social media are the consumers of our race. And so they're the people attending our race and the people who are racing with us. And so now that helps us know, okay, we have that market. So now how do we look outside that market and expand the demographic? Because we have the right people watching and consuming the stuff we're putting out there now. So now it gives us another, you know, a set of data to expand upon.
Nice.
But to answer your question about the rookies. So the rookie program is a program we started with last year, and it was a program to look at a 4,400 racer and essentially have them help us teach people how to come and race King of the Hammers. We started receiving the applications and we said, why do we have one person teach everyone when we can help so many? And so that's where we spiraled and took them all. And we, you know, less than 25% of the people who start our race actually finish it. And so we wanted to, you know, help make it a less overwhelming feat for people to get to and then compete. And so
real quick, I have a question is, if I'm a rookie and I'm just starting out, so I don't have a large social following yet, and a lot of people I'm not connected to a lot of people on social media, can I lever your social media to get myself more visibility and promote my sponsors?
So that's one thing that, for example, the expo that we were just at, we had 43 rookies come out to it and join us for the day. And a large majority of them said, first of all, you're going to get out of whatever you want from the program, whatever you put into it. You know, there were a couple who got up and didn't sit in a lot of the sessions. They're not really going to get anything out of it. If you ask questions from the speakers and the guests and the veterans, you're going to take a lot away from it. Some of them walked around and started speaking to people. And when you go to shows like that, you know, Cam and other vendors and sponsors on this call can attest to all the people who walk up to you at those shows.
Oh, yeah.
They have something else to add to it. Hey, I'm a King of the Hammers rookie. I'm going to get to the start line this year. And these are the things I'm doing because of it. I'm learning from these people, and they're learning those different ways, and they can leverage. We're teaching them. They're hearing from people like Cam. They heard from Chris Corbett on Chris Corbett from Nitto Tires. If you don't have a tire sponsorship, this is how to buy tires in a smart way. We even had General Tires come and speak, communication and content manager at the show. And so everybody's friends. And
Nice.
so Blake Wilkie came and spoke about, you know, his marketing and how he got to where he was. And so it was a full day of speakers, like every 30 minutes.
So you
And
provide a
all
platform where
that.
people can get up and educate, more experienced racers can educate the new racers. That's excellent. And I was going to throw it over to Cam real quick before we have to end the session. Is what does Optima do, or does Optima also develop drivers and talent and help with social media and help? You know, sometimes you get a great racer, someone who can drive fast, but they don't yet know how to market very well because they've spent their whole life racing and learning to become the best racer in the world. Does Optima help? And if so, how?
Well, we do as much as we can. I mean, Jim is, you know, there to help. Our agencies definitely get involved and try to put together, before the year starts, try to put together a strategy and manage it, and strategy and goals, and then try to track on those goals. So yeah, there is definitely some coaching along the way, but not I wouldn't say a documented process at this time.
Well, let me ask this. If we have 2 minutes left, I'll give you a minute, Cam, and then Courtney gets a minute. What last words of advice do you have? Recommendation, tips, tricks, just racers on the call want to get sponsored. They want to create more value for current sponsors. What advice do you have that you think maybe they haven't heard yet?
Well, and this kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier, but we kind of have, so for us, there's kind of two main levels of sponsorship. Are you looking for a product sponsorship and you're going to put a decal on the car? That's pretty basic stuff, right? And we're typically there to help if you're in a professional arena, right? We're typically pretty easy to work with. So give us a shot. Fill out the form on our website. The next one, paid sponsorships. Again, I was trying to, you know, kind of lay out those unwritten things, but the single biggest piece of advice I can give you is become friends with either our current partners, and or meet us at events. Become known. A piece of paper is not a great introduction, but a personal one-on-one. We are at over,
You're at everything.
365 events a year, and we have representatives at those events. And if you're racing with one of our current racers, be friends with them.
Right.
Get your name known.
I totally agree with that. Sometimes you need a partner to bring you into a new community, because a partner gives credibility. Courtney, 60 seconds. Any last words of advice? And thank you, Cam. I appreciate that. And then while Courtney's up, we're going to queue up Tom Kelly and Matt Burrows from Monster Energy. Courtney, last words of advice to a racer on the call seeking sponsorship.
Yep. So I talk about metrics and analytics, and those are all extremely important to know that you're doing the right thing in the right direction. But use those as a guide. The biggest thing is, how can you be different? So how can you be different, and how can you be just a little bit better? So take a look at what you're doing and how can you stand out. Make sure that people, as hard as it is, how can you show your personality? Put your face in front of it. And I know that especially competitors do not like to put their face out there. But one thing I tell all the rookies is go practice, say, hey, how are you? My name's Courtney. Do it in front of the mirror. And I know that the guys laugh at me specifically, but they say it works. Like, people don't like it's introducing themselves, making that first impression, having energy when you do it so that people can remember you. How can you do it different? Do it on camera. You know, when you're doing a walk around your car, like, just push stuff out there, be consistent with it. And don't just do what you have to do it one step better.
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot. In fact, the media training, I think, is critical, because when a racer does start to win and become public, they start to get more media, and that often is a very uncomfortable time for them. So
Yeah.
Courtney, Cam, thank you very much. That was an excellent session. Thank you. We'll see you at the next Motorsports Sponsorship Summit, which is going to be in January.
Awesome.
All right, let's cue up
I know I'll see you before
Tom
that.
Kelly and Matt Burrows from Monster Energy. So this is a neat session. I like this one because this upcoming session is called The Reality of ROI. And ROI means return on investment. That means that when a company is looking at the numbers, they're looking at their expenses as investments in potentially making money. They're investing in you to race. They're not expensing the racing, they're investing in it because they expect a return out of it. So how do you measure return on investment? Is it more customers? Is it more product sales? I've heard everything from brand managers in the past. Oh, I need 3x on my ROI. I need 4x. I need 5x. I need 5 times return of my investment. If I invest $1, I need to make $5 back. And I've also heard, well, you know, we calculate ROI by licking our finger and sticking it in the wind and seeing which way the wind's blowing. So ROI is a very evasive, interesting topic. Small companies tend to know if their marketing works because the owner or CEO or the founder of a small company, he knows what moves the needle. They see on a daily basis if they're selling. When you get to bigger companies with thousands of employees and hundreds of departments, it's a lot harder to gauge what's moving the needle and where the results are actually coming from. So if you take a company like Monster Energy, I think Monster Energy was in the paper, I've seen it a couple of times now, is the most successful stock on the exchange, on its exchange, I should say, with 115,000% return in terms of its stock price growth. So, boy, how do you calculate that? Is it because the marketing is working well? Is it because the teams that Monster sponsors do a good job? Is it because the salespeople are getting new distribution channels? I don't know. But you know what? We're going to ask a couple guys from Monster today, one who races and one who's been with the company since the very beginning. So Tom Kelly is the CFO of Monster Energy, and Matt Burrows is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Finance. What's really cool is that Tom and I worked together in the 1980s before Monster was Monster. Monster was Hanson's back then, and Tom was my boss. He was actually a really cool boss, I have to say. Cool guy. And even more cool, Matt Burrows, he races. He races for Can-Am, the factory team. What number is it? 298, is it 2498 or 2948, Matt? I know you race Pro UTV Turbo for Can-Am.
Yeah.
2948 in score.
Okay.
2948.
And before Alex takes all of my opening, I'm going to cut you off right there, Alex, and take it from here. Do you have anything else, Alex? Yeah.
Tell us what ROI is, Tom. What the heck is ROI? Is there such a thing?
I'm not going to start with that. I'm going to start a little bit before that and tell a little storytelling first. Okay. I know you only have a half hour, but yes, I'd like to be able to acknowledge my colleague, Matt Burrows, who's you announced him as the Senior VP of Corporate Finance, one day soon to be CFO as well. So at Monster.
And also he's a 2-time overall UTV score champion. That's more important there.
Hey, Alex, you asked me to come on and then you take my whole speech.
All right. Go ahead. You had it wrong yesterday. That's what I'm saying.
No, but thank you, Alex, and thank all the audience for being here and participating. And Alex was correct. I think it was in 1988 that I first met Alex. He was a college kid. He was doing the backup tapes at what was then the Hanson Company. He used to work in the computer room, and he was just as energetic there then as he is now. So it's been great knowing Alex for all these years. He actually has asked me to come on this session a few different times. And I've always said, Alex, I'm buried in finance. I don't know anything about marketing. Is it technical okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
good.
good. And so fortunately, I brought together my colleague Matt, who's going to, help me with the marketing end of a business as far as the financial end. But before we get into and started on that, I did want to say that Monster's enjoyed a lot of different sponsors over the years. We have sponsored a lot of different athletes and a lot of different events. And I'd like to make just a separate tribute to some of the past athletes that work for Monster, such as Ken Block, Pat Casey, Rick Hewson, and Sarah Burke. Those were Monster employees that are no longer here. And, they've had unfortunate accidents along their journeys. And so I wanted to just acknowledge them. I got to acknowledge what Cam and Courtney has said prior to me. Cam, I believe that you said, when you got it, you've got it. I think that was the term that you used. And I got to say that that's how Monster's beginnings of sponsorships took place. Back in 2002, when Monster was first created, we had a very, very grassroots marketing. We didn't want to go to radio or TV. We thought that was too mainstream. We wanted to appeal to the younger generation at that time. And I don't know what generation Z or X or what letter that was during that time. Maybe it was the millennials. But at that time, we did a lot of crazy things. For instance, we would go to these events and races. We wouldn't sponsor anybody, but we would wait for the winner to win the race. And then once that winner won, that's when we go over there with the Monster banners and put the cap on the winner and put the banner on and do all the photo shoots as though we were sponsoring. So maybe it was a little just disingenuous at the time, but those were the type of grassroots marketing that we had at the time.
Joe Parsons said that he went with pockets full of cash to different events. And right as somebody won an event, he'd say, hey, I'll give you $500 if you put on our hat. He would trade them. That's really brilliant, actually, Tom. Brilliant way to market.
And those were the days where there wasn't a lot of attention. I don't even think Red Bull had a big budget when it comes to the sports, because we're talking about energy drinks now, and it was us against the Red Bull. It was something that was not traditional advertising. And so these are the kind of mechanisms that we use to get our name out there. And we did get that grassroots following. And from there, we sponsored a lot of smaller events, the skateboarding, the bikes, the mountain biking, those types of events. And then that graduated to different types of events that we would get into. Another one that comes to mind is, speaking of kind of crazy marketing approaches, is if you remember in 2015, there was the horse American Pharoah.
The Triple
Won
Crown.
the first two legs of the Triple Crown, and the third leg was coming up. And they approached us and they said, listen, we have a good chance of winning the Triple Crown. Do you want to be a sponsor? And there was some negotiations 3 or 4 days before that race took place. American Pharoah won the race. We did do the sponsorships with them. We got a lot of what Mark Hall refers to as a lot of eyeballs. Did it have a return on investment? Well, it's hard to measure, but if you looked at the film clips back then, all the winning circles, the family that crowded around the horse at that time after it's won, had Monster hats on. So it did get a lot of attention. And from those early beginnings, now Monster is in UFC. We sponsored Conor McGregor. We're in Formula One, MotoGP. We've got sponsors such as Lewis Hamilton, Valentino Rossi, and the list goes on and on to Chloe Kim, NASCAR. One of the advices that I like, what I believe Courtney says, is get yourself out there, market yourself, go to these events, make yourself approachable to the people that are at these events from different companies that are looking for new people to sponsor. One story that just came through recently, that Philippe Toledo, and I'm not sure if I've got that right. He just won the world title in surfing just recently. He approached us prior to doing that. So we didn't know it. And the marketing department, I don't know what kind of evaluation that they did, but they took it upon themselves to sponsor this person. And that person won the world title. And from that, Monster got a lot of name recognition that's out there. So that just gives you some idea, as what Courtney said earlier, is that you've got to network yourself. You've got to go out there and again, it's that self-esteem that companies are looking for. Obviously, if you're winning events in your field, that is a big indicator that we would like to have an association with them. And instead of going through the rest of the laundry list of all the other things that Monster's involved with, I'd just like to, let's see. Monster spends, millions and millions of dollars in how to allocate its budget. And it allocates its budget by, giving certain amounts to Tiger Woods. Like I mentioned before, the NASCAR, we've got our own supercross races, the X Games.
If I asked you how much you spent on motorsports, would you tell me?
Sorry.
If I asked how many millions you spend on motorsports, would you answer?
He would not. He would not.
I would not. I
annual
only
report
read
for
from
that.
what's published publicly. So, I think that the advice that the previous presenters gave us. Now, Alex came to me a couple of times and he says, "Well, what's the ROI, the return on investment?" It's a very hard indicator. It's hard to measure what that is. When you're out there spending millions of dollars, and I'm talking about even things that Monster doesn't get involved with, such as, say, Super Bowl. I don't know how they measure. Certainly, everybody likes the cute ads, but to get a feedback of how many impressions that was taken during those Super Bowl ads, I don't know what that how that is measured by other companies. We don't do it in finance. What does occur in finance is that we can see the result. We can see increased sales. Certainly, if there's an event like motocross or say a NASCAR race that's going on in a locality, you might go into a 7-Eleven or a mobile convenience store and you'll see some posters that we would sponsor events that way. So that's how our marketing dollars are directed. But I know the audience wants to hear is, well, how could I approach somebody? How could I get into? And I'm not going to give out any names on this call because I'll have a lot of irate colleagues of mine, but gets to know who are those decision makers at Monster. Who is the event? We have the events broken up into off-road events, bike events, surfboard events, skate events, and we have managers for each one of those events. See if you can't get those names and approach those persons if those are the persons that's in your area. So that would be my advice on that. Now, I've from a finance view, again, but the best I could say is return on investment. We don't measure it. We just know what it is. Again, what Cam says, you just know when you have it, you know the results. If something's popular, it's like recently it's Taylor Swift. She's the talk of the town now with football. Well, she's a pretty high brand name, and no matter what she does, she's going to get recognition out there. How that is for a newcomer, I don't know. One more thing I'll add is social media, something that wasn't around 10 or 15 years ago. Followers on Instagram, followers on the Facebook. Those are the important things. If there's a lot of followers, then it's certainly easy for us to have a relationship and a partnership with them. But so that's for the finance. I know with my limited amount of time, I really wanted to partner up with my colleague. And just to give you an idea of who I'm introducing you to, not only has he been a great person to work with and helping me tremendously in the finance area at Monster, a very smart individual. He's during 1999 to 2005, he was a motorcycle rider. He was riding under the banner of Factory Husqvarna, if I pronounced that correctly.
Husqvarna, yep.
Husqvarna. More recently, though, in 2020, he was the SCORE Baja 500 champion. Matt talked about the SCORE racing circuit earlier. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of races that you have to attend to actually come for, be the winner. So he won that single event. And then in 2022, he won the overall SCORE Baja UTV. So that's the combination of all the races that took place in 2022. He won that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my good colleague, Matt Burrows, to you. And Matt can fill you in, since he is a racer, since he is going on knocking on doors to companies to get sponsorships. I'll leave it to Matt to take it over.
Well, that was great. Thank you, Tom. That was awesome. Matt, how are you?
Thanks, Tom. I'm
That's
good.
a
How are
car
you?
in the background there.
Yes, thank you.
Real quick, what is your next event?
The Baja 1000. So
Right
we
on.
are
That'll be awesome.
this 1,308 miles. So we are trying to get ready for that long pull this year.
That's
And I know I'm invading.
Off-Road Expo. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I know I'm invading on your time a little bit, Matt, but Matt, that vehicle that you see behind him, it's a beautiful vehicle, but it gets broken down and rebuilt almost every, I don't know, Matt, every other race?
No, every race is a full prep. So
yeah, so you take off all the tires, all the springs, everything.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll let you go from there.
All right, so Alex, I want to clean up one statement you made, because I'm a finance guy. So over the last 25 years, Monster is the #1 stock for return. Better than Amazon, better than Google, better than Facebook, better than all of them. So over the last 25 years. So anyway, clean that up from a finance perspective. Yes.
Oh, and you know what? Because the article said of the century. So that would make sense. Not in a century, but of the century. Okay.
Yes,
that would make sense. The best performing stock of the century, Monster Energy. Well, congratulations, everybody at Monster. Hey, so Matt, when it comes to, and I've had Dave Galland on, we've had Joe Parsons on, we've had a lot of people on from Monster, and everybody sort of has a different perspective. But since you are in finance and you understand marketing and you also race and you're a champion in the UTV class, what is it that Monster looks for when selecting new athletes? We have a lot of racers on the call who probably want to be sponsored by Monster or a company like Monster. What advice do you have to them for getting sponsored by an energy drink or a big company with a lot of money?
I think the first thing, before you kind of go after a Monster sponsorship, which, I would consider, definitely a big company and A-level sponsorship, is you need to get out there and get some results. Things are changing a bit, and there's the influencer side and the social media side, but our roots are still there for championships and winning drivers, and I'm speaking specifically in off-road. So spend the time, go out and get the results. I think it's unrealistic to go to a company like Monster and say, look, sponsor me, but you've really had no results. And it doesn't mean that, we have a program, we have the Monster Army program that invests in, kind of up and coming riders. And that's a place definitely to start with Monster. But to really get a good, kind of an A-level sponsorship for Monster, you need to go out and have some success. Not only success, your program needs to look like a professional program. I think, those are kind of the two mistakes that I see people make oftentimes is, one, they're not out there getting the results that they need to get, and two, their program isn't, from an outside perspective, isn't a professional looking program.
And what Tom was saying is it's a self-esteem that the company looks for. So there's an attitude and a personality and perhaps a culture that you need to fit in when you approach a brand. The culture of, let's say, Budweiser beer is going to be different from the culture of Monster Energy. Can you talk a minute about what Monster looks for when it seeks athletes with self-esteem so it matches the culture of the brand?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for, one, that we're looking for winners. That's really a big thing that's Monster is looking for. But we're looking for, people that will be good ambassadors of the brand. Somebody that, we're comfortable bringing to an event that Monster might have. And let's talk the Sandsport Super Show, for instance. We're looking for people that can go to an event like that and really have a presence and represent Monster well in an event like that.
And then you're in finance, so you understand the numbers. And Tom was talking in general ROI. And most large companies, it's very difficult to calculate what actually moves that needle. But are there metrics that do help if a young driver is looking to impress Monster? Are there certain metrics that are more important to the brands than others that you suggest maybe people focus on?
Again, hard for me to say because I'm not in the marketing department, but for me and what, my role, and I help out a little bit on the off-road side, was just, a set of eyes and ears out there. And it's really presence. It's really, if I go to an off-road race, and it doesn't come down, you don't need to have a lot of money, and that's not where I'm going this, but what is your presence like? What does your chase truck look like? Is your chase truck wrapped? If you are a Monster sponsor, where does the Monster logo? Is it placed right? Is it clean? Do you have a clean looking race suit? How does your helmet look? Do you have an easy up? If we've given you easy ups, are they there? Are they branding? So it's all those little things, are extremely important to Monster. And those are things that at events with racers, we are looking at to make sure that we're getting, our ORI on that specific race for that specific driver. Have they performed, up to our expectations?
And that actually makes a lot of sense. I think that would apply to most strong brands. So Tom,
if I could ask,
put you in.
Sorry, Alex, I know you're doing the interview, but I wanted to turn the attention back to Matt's car, because you've got, you don't have to name them, but how many sponsors do you have on that car? And how did you approach each one? I think that you told me before, Matt, that you've got somebody that does the tires, the oils, the springs. Yeah. And how do you go about knocking on the door and saying, listen, I'm going to be a UTV racer. This is what I need.
Yeah, and it's, a good question. I think one of the mistakes that from what I hear, a lot of mistakes that prospective athletes make is they go to the companies, they approach the company and saying, I want this, I want that. I want 10 tires, I want whatever. And a different approach is, when I approach a company, it's, here's what I can do for you. As a racer, I'm going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And here's the things I guarantee I'm going to do. I'm going to be at the races. I'm going to be well branded. We may not win, but we're, over time, hopefully are going to be successful. And, the tire sponsor is a great example. It's, I'm, been with System 3 tires for quite a long time. And if you're looking at ROI for them, we were able to give them, the Baja championships that you spoke of. So they're able to use that in their marketing of their tires are Baja champions in the UTV area. Number two is System 3 has put up large banners throughout dealerships across the nation of my car. System 3, big System 3 logo. Monster gets to be on there as well. But if you look at Chaparral Motorsports, which is one of the biggest dealers in the nation, happens to be right here, there is an enormous banner on the window of us from a race. So I really approach each one of those to say, here's what I can do for you. The conversation about what I need from them is that's just many times well down the road. It's, here's what I can do for you. I can present this with you. On the Monster side, what's been a perk for my other sponsors is I made it to the gas station wrap.
Nice.
So
congratulations on that. That's big, actually.
And I didn't even know until people were sending me texts saying, hey, I got one. He was in the middle of Minnesota somewhere. He takes a picture inside the store above the cooler, and there's a picture of our car. Nice. So those are the things that I try to show that I can do. One of the, I think Mark from iBach, I think he's joining later, but that picture at, that big picture at Chaparral, there's an enormous iBox sticker right there on the front of the car. So these are the things I like to present to sponsors with, to say, this is what I can do for you. I don't have the biggest social media following, It's just, part of my, it's a weak part of my game, although we're trying to get better. But I really try to give the sponsors, idea of here's what I can do. I think I think one other mistake that I hear that many racers make is they say they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and they don't do it. Whether that's I'm going to race this series, I'm going to be at this event with my car. They make promises and then they don't deliver. If you tell a sponsor you're going to race a series, you need to race that series.
That makes sense. Well, I have a question for both of you, and we have 2 minutes, so either one of you can answer it. But let's go back to the finance part real quick. Is explain to the racers on the call and those of us who don't quite get it, how does the budgeting process work? What's the fiscal year? When is the fiscal year? When are budgets made? Does the marketing department give you a request for how much they're going to get that year, or do you determine the profits of the company and allocate it to marketing and say, okay, this is what you have to spend? How exactly does that work from the top end down?
Well, there's years ago, there was an established amount, and it seems that it continues to grow with the expected growth of the sales of the company. So if we expect to grow 5 or 10% next year, then that person will increase that budget. And it's a bottoms up. So the person who's the chief marketing officer, he's got a staff. And as I mentioned before, those individuals are heads of certain departments, off-road, the BMX or the bikes or the skateboards. And so he'll meet with those, and those individuals will say, this is what we would like to have for next year. That all gets put together. It's compared to the prior year spend. And if it's in reason, then it just gets approved. Obviously, there are certain things that are ongoing. As I mentioned, some of the Tiger Woods, he'll get his, allocated his contract each year. The Supercross, the PBRs, the UFCs, all those have a dedicated amount. But there was a big chunk where it's left for, I would say, Matt, where there's over 100 different individuals that we sponsor on a smaller level. And that's the group I think that people would like to get into and say, well, I'm not going to compete with the bigger budget piece, but there's enough money in that one pool where there's a lot of amounts that are going to be dispersed to smaller individuals, somebody who are on the up and coming of that. So
and I think typically our pattern is, most of the sponsorships start kind of late summer, August, September. That's where most of the conversations happen. I think another thing, Alex, that's important is really try to forge a personal relationship with your sponsors. Don't do it just via email. Pick up the phone and call. Have video chats. Really develop a relationship, and don't look to your sponsor relationship. Okay, if you get told no by a company, don't give up and continue with that relationship because you don't know. On the flip side, when you have a sponsorship, don't automatically think you're going to have that forever. Continue to foster that relationship. Call them, email them, get on video calls. Keep that open line of communication so they know that you still view them as important.
And that's a really good point. In fact, that's a great segue to a future session, which we're going to have, is keeping sponsors long-term for 20 and 30 years. So Tom, Matt, thank you very much for that insight. That was awesome. Thank you for taking the time on a work day, Wednesday. And I really do appreciate it. Everybody on the call here.
Great seeing you, Alex. Thank you, Matt, as well. And thanks to all the other panelists and participants on the call. Thanks.
So Tom, you did great. And you were very prepared. Tammy and I want to take you and Kathy out to a winery next week. So I'm going to give you a call. Thank you for being prepared. That was awesome.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
You did great. So now let's queue up the factory team from Polaris Factory Racing. We have Ryan Thomas, Travis Clark, and Jason DeFuscia. This is an interesting session because every brand needs research and development, and all brands want to make their products better. Brands want to improve. When the products are small, like widgets, you can have an R&D department and you can test in-house. You can test in a warehouse. You can test in a factory. But if you're creating a vehicle that's going to go 1,000 miles through the hot desert. It's very hard to test that in a warehouse. You actually need to be on site. You need to be in the desert. And a lot of times companies can't do that, especially if they're based in areas where there is no desert, in the Midwest, Minnesota. So you need to have a team on the ground who can do the testing for you. In the field of automotive, it's called